everyone, and welcome to the kitchen of the Folkish Farmer. Today we're going to make some bread. Now, I don't typically eat a lot of bread, but on a cold winter day, you just really want some bread. And this is a little bit of a healthier bread. I'm going to use something called einkorn. And einkorn is an ancient grain. It's a very old wheat. It's about 12,000 years old as far as cultivation that we know of. So you can think that our ancestors probably had something very similar to this. And it's a lot different than our modern bleached out wheat that you get in the grocery store. It is a little bit more expensive, but the way I see it is I don't eat a lot of breads, I don't eat a lot of pastries and things like that. So, when I do like a higher quality, and this is certainly one of them. What I have here is 1 cup of water, and this water is not boiling, but it's not cold. It's about 100 degrees. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add just a small little drizzle of honey into this. Now you could use sugar or something. What you're wanting to do is activate the yeast. So I'm just going to pour a little bit of honey in there, not too much. And then I'm going to use 1 teaspoon of instant yeast. So this is a very similar process if you wanted to think of as making beer as well. So I've got my 1 teaspoon in there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to stir this up a little bit. This is going to activate that yeast. And what we're going to look for here in just probably a minute or two is a nice foamy top to it. So you really want to get that mixed in there, stirred in really well. And you can already smell it from here. It smells like bread. The yeast gives the bread the kind of flavor. It's very similar with beer. There's thousands of different strands of yeast. So anytime you use a different yeast, you'll get a different result in your bread, just like you will with beer. Let's put that to the side there. Now what I've got is 2 cups of einkorn. So I'm going to put my 2 cups of flour right into the mixer here. Do you have to have a mixer? Absolutely not. Our ancestors certainly didn't have a mixer, but if you really want to work out, do this by hand. It can be done, but you're going to have basically Popeye arms after you do this. So at this point, what I'm going to be using is a dough hook, and that's just going to kind of mix things together. So at this point, you can already see that I'm getting a nice little foam top there. That's good. That yeast is activated. It doesn't take long with the instant yeast. So I'll go ahead and pour that in there. And then I'm going to add a tablespoon and a half of salt. Now I use pink Himalayan salt. You could use sea salt. Really doesn't matter. I tend to stay away from the iodized salt just because it's usually kind of low quality salt. So I've got those two right there. Now at this point what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this dough hook. And I'm going to put this dough hook right in here, like this. I'm going to raise this up, and I'm going to go ahead and stir this in with the machine. So it just takes a few minutes. Now, you may want to use one of these little spatula things to kind of scrape around the edges if you're using the machine. That'll help mix things up really nice for you. And like I said, you just really want to mix this together until you get it into a dough consistency, and that only takes just a few minutes here. It's not long at all. So I'm going to continue to scrape around the edges there until I get a nice consistent dough. While that kind of whips around a little bit, I'm going to go ahead and take a bowl here, and I'm going to put just a little bit of flour in the bottom of the bowl here. So take a little bit of the einkorn, kind of sprinkle it. This will help it from sticking to the bowl itself. So already I've got a nice little dough going here. So I'll show you guys what that looks like. I've got my dough hook here. You can already see that it's pretty much a nice little dough. So I'm just going to kind of roll it around in a little bit of the flour that I put in the bottom of this and kind of work it through a little bit more. Because what we're going to do is we're going to cover this with a cloth. I just use a clean, and I do stress clean, kitchen towel that I've got over here on the side. So just kind of work this together a little bit, kind of get the consistency. So once you've got a nice little ball going here, what you're going to do is you're going to let this rise. And if you've got a fireplace, don't put it exactly near it, but get it kind of close to it. It'll help it rise. Heat does tend to help it rise, but it doesn't have to be. you can just leave it laying on a table. That's what I'll do, just leave it on the table. So once I got my dough right here, I'm just going to kind of move the flour around a little bit in the bowl. Just going to kind of put it in here. And then what I'm going to do, like I said, I'm going to take a clean, which I already got prepared here, kitchen towel, and I'm going to cover this guy up. I'm going to wait 2 hours, and once that's rose, I'm going to cut it out into 3 sections, and I'm going to roll it out just like you would French bread. And at that point, I'm going to put it in the oven at 450, and it's going to bake for approximately 25 to 30 minutes, depending upon your oven. After that, I'll take a picture of it and show you guys, but this is a very easy recipe for making bread, and it tastes delicious. And I'll see you guys soon. Okay guys, welcome back. So the dough is risen, and what I'm going to do on a nice little floured surface here, I'm going to take and I'm going to roll this out just a little bit so that I can make 3 even cuts, because that's what my pan has here. Now if you want to do this in just a regular baking sheet, that's perfectly fine. Some people add a little bit of water to an oven safe bowl and put it at the bottom of it so that it steams up a little bit. This little fancy contraption here actually kind of creates the steam inside the baking apparatus. So what I'm going to do with a very sharp knife, not a butter knife, not some dull knife, a very extremely sharp knife, one that I can actually shave with if I wanted to. Bring that off just a little bit. So I'm going to cut this into 3 sections and try to make them as even as possible. So I got 1, 2, 3 little sections there. Now what I'm going to do is just kind of roll these a little bit in my hand and just kind of pull them just a little bit. If you notice, the dough is pretty elastic, so you just want to kind of keep rolling it with your hands a little bit, keep kind of pulling it, because I want it to be the same size as the tray, at least in my little tray here. If you're doing this in just a pan, it doesn't really matter, but kind of the longer the better. You don't want it thick, and you want it as even as possible. So I'm going to keep rolling this guy a little bit, stretching him out here. So there we go, kind of lay that one in there. Got this guy here. A little flour on those ends that I cut, makes it a little easier to stretch out and roll. So I'll just keep kind of rolling this guy a little bit, just like such here. So there we go. That guy in there, he's a little bit bigger, but that seems to always happen with the middle piece. Just a little dough on the floor. Dogs will enjoy that. We'll just keep kind of stretching this out a little bit there, because once the bread is in this cooking sheet here, there's going to be a lot of steam created, and that's what you're going to do with the water in a bowl if you don't have one of these little ceramic cooking apparatuses. Now what I'm going to do with my very sharp knife is I'm going to cut little grooves into the top. Not too deep, just kind of little slices in there, just like such. There we go. And at this point, what I'm going to do, I'm going to cover this, and I'm going to stick it in the oven for about 25 minutes at 450 degrees. And after that's done, I'm going to put it on a rack here. You don't need a fancy bread rack or anything like that. You can simply use like a roasting rack, like you would roast a leg of lamb or a pork shoulder or something in. Flip it upside down and lay it across. And I'll take a quick picture of that and show you guys what it looks like once it's done. And I'll see you soon. So welcome back, guys. The bread is now done, and I've got it cooling here. I'll let it cool for approximately 10 minutes, and then we'll be able to cut it up and have it with our main dish tonight. And our main dish tonight is lamb shanks, one of my absolute favorite. So this goes great with broths. It goes good with any kind of soupy stews, that kind of thing. It also goes really good with pate and fondue. So stay tuned. We'll be doing some of those recipes, especially pate and fondue, one of my favorites. And I'll see you guys soon.